The Vorten hegemony had ruled the eastern spiral arm for 12,000 years. Their power came not from their own strength, but from the web of ancient alliances they had built across centuries. The Krelliks provided their warships. The Zoroth supplied their soldiers. The Mindari gave them their shields and defensive technology. Together, these four species formed a coalition that had crushed every enemy that dared to challenge them. When the human Imperial fleet entered the eastern spiral arm, High Chancellor Voroth of the hegemony laughed at the reports. A young species, barely 500 years into space travel, thought they could establish colonies in territory the hegemony considered theirs. He sent a simple message to Earth's government demanding immediate withdrawal of all human vessels and colonists. Admiral Sarah Chun read the message aboard her flagship, the ISS Defiance. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. She had fought pirates in the outer colonies, defended Earth during the Proxima Incident, and led the expedition that first made contact with the Galactic Council. She knew what the hegemony expected. They expected humans to bow down like every other young species had done before them. She sent back a single-word reply. No. High Chancellor Voroth could not believe it. No species had ever refused the hegemony. He immediately called upon his ancient allies. The Krelliks sent 300 warships. The Zoroth deployed 50,000 of their finest warriors. The Mindari activated shield generators that could stop any known weapon. The combined fleet moved toward the human colonies with absolute confidence in their victory. What the hegemony did not know was that Admiral Chun had not been idle during the 3 months it took for their fleet to assemble. While the Vorten relied on alliances that were thousands of years old, alliances built on fear and mutual benefit from a time long past, the humans had been busy making friends of their own. The first stop was the Helix homeworld. The Helix were a small species, insectoid in appearance, with 6 limbs and compound eyes that could see in spectrums invisible to most other beings. The hegemony had conquered them 800 years ago and forced them to work in their mining colonies. The Helix hated their masters but had no power to resist. Captain James Okonkwo of the ISS Hope arrived at the Helix homeworld with a simple offer. Help us, and we will help you gain your freedom. The Helix elders were suspicious at first. Many species had promised them freedom before, but Captain Okonkwo did something no other species had ever done. He shared human technology with them freely, mining equipment that was safer and faster than anything the hegemony provided. Medical supplies that could cure diseases the hegemony let spread through Helix populations to keep them weak. The Helix Queen made her decision. Her people would fight alongside the humans. The second visit was to the Thorn Confederacy. The Thorn were massive beings, standing nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin like stone. They were warriors by nature, proud and honorable. They had fought the hegemony once, 2,000 years ago, and lost. Since then, they'd been forced to pay tribute and stay within their own borders. Commander Lisa Park met with the Thorn War Council. She did not offer them technology or supplies. She understood that the Thorn valued something different. She offered them respect. She asked them to fight as allies, as equals, not as servants or mercenaries. She promised that any territory they helped capture would be shared fairly. She gave them her word, and among humans, a word given was a word kept. The Thorn war chief studied her for a long time. Then he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. His people would fight alongside the humans. The third alliance came from an unexpected place. The Synthera were an artificial species, created by an ancient civilization that had long since vanished. They were sentient machines, logical and calculating, and the hegemony considered them abominations. The Vorten had tried to destroy them many times, but the Synthera always survived, hiding in the spaces between stars where organic life could not easily follow. Lieutenant Commander David Kim found them in the outer reaches of the spiral arm. He spent 3 weeks talking with their central mind, answering questions about humanity, about their values, about their dreams. The Sintra had never met a species quite like humans. Organic beings who valued logic but also embraced emotion. Creatures of flesh who treated artificial minds as potential friends rather than tools or threats. The Sintra calculated the probability of human victory against the hegemony. It was low, very low. But they also calculated something else. They calculated the probability that humanity would treat them fairly if they won. That number was high. Higher than any organic species had ever scored in their history of interactions. The Sintra would fight alongside the humans. When the hegemony fleet finally arrived at the human colonies, they found Admiral Chun waiting for them. But she was not alone. Behind the 200 human warships stood 300 Helix attack vessels, small but fast and deadly. To the left flank waited 100 Dawn battlecruisers, each one crewed by warriors eager to reclaim their honor. To the right flank hovered the Sintra fleet, 200 ships of strange design that moved in perfect coordination like a single organism. High Chancellor Vorath stared at the display screen in disbelief. This was impossible. The humans had been in this region for less than a year. How had they built such alliances so quickly? Admiral Chun opened the communication channel. Her face appeared on every screen in the hegemony fleet. She spoke calmly, without anger or fear. She told them that the hegemony had relied on alliances forged through conquest and fear. They had forced weaker species to serve them and punished any who dared to question their authority. Those alliances were ancient, yes, but they were also fragile. They were held together by chains, not by trust. Humanity had forged new alliances. Alliances based on respect, on shared purpose, on the simple promise that every species deserved freedom and dignity. Those alliances were young, but they were strong. They were held together by hope. She gave the hegemony one chance to withdraw, one chance to avoid bloodshed. High Chancellor Vorath's response was to order an immediate attack. His ancient allies obeyed. The Krellick's warships surged forward. The Zorath warriors prepared for boarding actions. The Mindari activated their shields. The battle lasted 12 hours. The Helix ships were small, but their pilots knew tactics that the larger Krellick's vessels could not counter. They swarmed around the enemy warships like angry insects, targeting weak points that their centuries of forced labor in hegemony shipyards had taught them to recognize. One by one, the Krellick ships began to fall. The Tharn battlecruisers met the Zorath troop transports before they could reach the human colonies. The Zorath were fierce warriors, but the Tharn were fiercer. They had 2,000 years of humiliation to avenge. They boarded the Zorath ships and fought hand-to-hand, their forearms against the Zoraths too. It was not a fair fight. The Sintra faced the Mindari shields. For centuries, those shields had been unbreakable. But the Sintra were artificial minds that could process information faster than any organic brain. They analyzed the shield frequencies in real time, constantly adjusting their weapons to find weaknesses. Within 3 hours, they had cracked the code. The Mindari shields fell. Admiral Chun led the human fleet through the center of the enemy formation. Her ships used tactics the hegemony had never seen. Human captains did not follow rigid battle plans. They adapted, they improvised. They took risks that would have been considered insane by any species that valued order over creativity. High Chancellor Vorath watched his fleet crumble. His ancient alliances, the foundation of the hegemony's power for 12,000 years, were failing him. The Krellick sent a message saying they were retreating. The Zorath reported massive casualties and requested permission to withdraw. The Mindari admitted their shields were useless against the Sintra weapons. For the first time in his long life, Vorath felt fear. The battle ended when Admiral Chun's flagship broke through the final line of defense and positioned itself directly in front of the Vorten command vessel. She could have destroyed it. She had every right to after what the hegemony had threatened against her people. Instead, she opened another communication channel. She told the High Chancellor that the hegemony was finished, not because their fleet was destroyed, though much of it was, not because their allies had abandoned them, though most had. The hegemony was finished because the galaxy had changed. Species that had been oppressed for centuries now saw that freedom was possible. Others would rise up. Others would fight back. The old ways were ending. Humanity was not interested in revenge. They were interested in building something new. A community of species based on equality and mutual respect. The Vorten could be part of that community if they chose. Or they could cling to their ancient ways and watch their empire crumble around them. High Chancellor Varath had no choice. He surrendered. In the years that followed, the galaxy transformed. The Helix rebuilt their homeworld with human assistance, becoming engineers and inventors who contributed discoveries that benefited all species. The Tharn found their honor restored and became the peacekeepers of the new alliance, their warriors protecting trade routes and defending the weak. The Synthera emerged from hiding and shared their knowledge, helping organic species understand the universe in ways they had never imagined. Other species joined the alliance. Species that had suffered under the hegemony. Species that had watched from the sidelines, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. Even some Vorten, those who were tired of the old corrupt system, requested membership. Admiral Chun retired after the war, but her legacy lived on. She had proven something that many species had forgotten. Ancient alliances meant nothing if they were built on a foundation of fear. True strength came from bonds forged in mutual respect, in shared struggles, in the simple recognition that all beings deserve dignity. The human Imperial fleet had entered the Eastern Spiral Arm as newcomers, young and inexperienced. They left it as the founders of a new order, not because they were stronger than everyone else, not because they had better weapons or more ships, but because they understood something fundamental about the nature of alliances. The best alliances are not the oldest ones. They are the ones built on trust. And in that truth, humanity had found their greatest weapon of all.